The first week of school ends with a student shot and killed.
But if there are no consequences, people going to continue to just shoot and kill each other on the street.
What we're learning about the deceased Mervo student and the suspect in custody. A recent city council meeting focused on school safety mostly neglected a discussion on firearms. Why one member says city school anti-violence strategies should be handled at the state level. City vacants are costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Fox 45 News examines new and old strategies to combat blight.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Less than a week into the new school year, tragedy strikes a Baltimore City school.
Another young life cut short in Baltimore as a student is gunned down outside Mervo High School during dismissal this afternoon.
Because we can't keep seeing this over and over and over again. There are too many young people that are being harmed in our city.
We have team coverage tonight. Keith Daniels is looking into how city leaders will address the violence moving forward. Thiru Vignaraja is standing by live in our studio to address Mayor Brandon Scott's comments and his overall crime response.
But we begin with Riel Creighton and an update on tonight's investigation. Riel?
Kai and Maxine, a murder here at Mervo High School, how the first week of school ended. The tragedy incredible enough to bring out the mayor, the police commissioner, and the city school CEO to talk about the stunning nature of this and the trauma that it is no doubt unleashed. That murder happening right here in the parking lot at the school. 2:30 in the afternoon, broad daylight. Police say a student from another high school showed up here, confronted the victim outside. There was a brief exchange before he pulled out a gun and shot him. Police say that suspect then ran. City schools police already on the grounds chased the teen and caught him within minutes and recovered that gun. Police say he is now in custody. Meantime, several sources, witnesses telling us that this all unfolded in front of students. You can just imagine how many there were out here as school was being let out. A 15-year-old telling us that he saw the victim up close as he was laying on the ground and that he had been shot in the head. There was also a lot of panic in the school and in the neighborhood. One woman who lives just doors down, not wanting to show her face, but describing the moments after the shooting, saying she could actually smell the gunfire.
It smelled like fireworks. But I'm like, what is that smell? Someone shooting. And I just saw the kids like dispersed all over the place. They were just running from here and there, left and right. So I'm just looking like, and I didn't see anyone, just kids running, that's it. And they were just hollering.
Now, police have not identified the victim or the suspect, but a source close to this investigation has identified both of them to us. We've learned that the victim is a 17-year-old 10th grader here at Mervo High School. The suspect, again, we've learned also 17 years old, a student, again, from another high school. We are not identifying him, pending charges. Reporting live at Mervo tonight, Riel Creighton, Fox 45 News.
Riel, thank you. Well, over the past 6 years before COVID shutdowns, the number of violent incidents in Baltimore City schools had been trending down. We're talking about violent acts that led to suspension or expulsion.
On the surface, that appears to be good news, but numbers don't always tell the full story. In 2017, City Schools Police Chief Akil Ham said that this system was no longer arresting students, instead focusing on building positive relationships with students so officers could learn more about the problems before they happen.
And at the time, Ham said that strategy was working, but Project Baltimore looked into the most recent data available from the 2019-2020 school year. We can see over 4,500 students were expelled. Nearly 2 out of 3 came for attacks, threats, or fighting. 160 were expelled for weapons and another 96 for arson and explosives.
More than a dozen guns were seized from city schools over the past school year, including 4 ghost guns. But a recent city council meeting to discuss school safety didn't address weapons in schools. Tonight, Fox 45 News is taking those concerns to city leaders and once again asking who needs to take charge to protect Baltimore school children. Keith Daniels joins us live with their response. Keith?
Well, Kai, like Riel told us, city school police officers chased down that suspect at the shooting. at that shooting at Mervo High School, and tonight taking another look at school officers and what they say the big change they need to help keep schools safe.
This is school police. They're on the parking lot and they need a medic for a victim.
He is shot in the head. Put out a citywide broadcast where we have students everywhere.
Gun violence and Baltimore City schools. A deadly combination at Mervo High School Friday. A student killed, the suspect, another student from another high school. City Councilman Robert Stokes.
It's unfortunate this happened the 5th day of school when school just opened up.
Certainly unfortunate, but maybe no surprise. The warning bells sounding early on about guns and school violence. Councilman Stokes, chair of the City Council's Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee, called a hearing just last week to discuss current school safety measures and what steps are being taken to keep students and staff safe. But after more than a 2-hour hearing that Thursday night, there were no questions about guns and city schools. The issue virtually ignored. We didn't hear much about guns.
Well, that will be probably at the next hearing. We're going to talk about guns in school. I'm going to bring it up.
Stokes instead focused on the agencies and their reports that night. But 1 week later, deadly gun violence at a city school. After that shooting, we pressed Stokes once again on the issue, including the effort to permit school resource officers to be armed while inside school buildings. Are you going to be pressuring the school board, the school officials, to do more about that issue?
No, that has to come from Annapolis.
Right, but will you be pressuring the local school board to pressure those people in Annapolis?
I will call each individual on the school board and have a conversation with them about that. Absolutely.
But at the shooting at Mervo Friday, Sergeant Clyde Boatwright, the City Schools Police Union president, says armed officers did respond, able to take swift action to apprehend the suspect and recover the gun, because the incident happened at dismissal, when officers can wear their weapons.
But what happened if that would have happened inside the school?
Right.
The school police would have been unarmed.
Well, for now, Baltimore City is the only jurisdiction in Maryland that does not allow school police to be armed inside school buildings. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, former city and federal prosecutor Tharu Vignaraja is here now to continue our coverage. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we heard from Mayor Brandon Scott this afternoon. He seemed distraught, of course, over the shooting at his alma mater. Let's listen to his comments.
We don't have to be that way. We can be better. We don't have to wait for someone else to do something. We don't have to point the finger and say who else is going to do something. We don't have to wait or post something on social media about how bad things are. Get up, get out there, get involved, get off your ass, and get involved with these young people, because we can't keep seeing this over and over and over again.
Frustration there, and we have heard similar sentiments from the mayor after shooting. So let's talk about how he's calling on residents to get involved in the crime fight. Do you believe the mayor is sending a strong enough message to those committing the crimes?
Look, I think the mayor is full of good intentions, and all of our thoughts and prayers are with the victim, the family, his classmates. But people are just sick and tired of just words, of these pledges and promises and calls to action, using curse words to show your frustration. That doesn't make things better. And I think people are looking for an actual change in policy, for an actual change in results. And I just don't know that any of these murders shocks the conscience of our city leaders anymore, whether it's a senior being killed in the basement of a church, or a 10th grader being killed on the 5th day of school outside during dismissal. None of these things seem to actually wake our leaders up to do anything. And until we actually see actions and not just thoughts and prayers and words, I don't think the city's going to be satisfied.
Tharu, the mayor did promise to cut crime by 15% each year when he was campaigning. We know that hasn't happened. Do you believe the mayor? What's happening here in this regard? Why do you think that hasn't happened?
You know, I think he is looking to residents to step up and do the work that city leaders are supposed to do, that city law enforcement, that police and prosecutors are supposed to do. It doesn't work this way. You don't just call out to the community to step up and do a better job, and then all of a sudden violence goes down. That's not how it happened in Baltimore when we had murders below 200. It's not how it happened in cities like New York or Chicago or Detroit, where murders actually were brought under control because of leadership, because of action, not words, not thoughts, not prayers, not calls to action. And I think so long as the mayor sticks to just talking points, things are not going to get better.
All right, Thrubik Naraja, thanks so much for joining us in studio tonight.
Thanks for having me. Good evening.
Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Mayor Brandon Scott is sending the right message to criminals in the city? So far, 96% of you who voted say no. You can weigh in by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Fox 45 News is committed to covering Baltimore's crime crisis and the impact on our city. We'll continue to hold our elected officials accountable for their promises to address the crisis. You can always get the latest information on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock, Baltimore's vacant crisis could be costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, while several attempts to tear down the old homes have been scrubbed. The Baltimore City Fire Department mourns one of its own, the powerful message to a 16-year veteran.
This weekend, it'll get hotter and more humid as the Labor Day weekend continues. We're also looking at the chance for storms. I'll break down how those could impact your plans coming up.
A hectic return to the classroom for dozens of Maryland school systems. Fox 45 reflects on a chaotic first week as leaders try to solve some major problems.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Someone who's squatting over there decided not to poop over there and brought their poop over here. Like, really? I mean, it's just gotten really, really out of control.
For city leaders to do something about more than 15,000 vacant properties in Baltimore. Tonight, a new report says Baltimore's vacant crisis is costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars each year. But city leaders are split over how to handle it.
Mackenzie Frost has a look at the burden on taxpayers and concerns about fixing the problem.
It doesn't take very long if you're driving through Baltimore to see scenes like this. Dilapidated and vacant properties almost in every single community across the city. This new report from Johns Hopkins University estimates that these are costing the city $200 million each and every year. And now the big question is, how will the city fix it? Baltimore full of blighted blocks, vacant properties, some standing as shells of former homes. An estimated 15,000 properties are left to rot, and about 8% of them are owned by the city of Baltimore. This new report from the 21st Century Cities Initiative from Johns Hopkins University estimates the blight brings a price tag of about $200 million to city taxpayers every year. From lost tax revenue to the expense of keeping up these properties to the city, the report writing, quote, even recognizing 2/3 of these lost revenues would be a significant boost to the city's budget and enable funding of more reinvestment.
It really limits the potential of the city as a whole.
Mac McComas, senior program manager, says everyone in the city, whether they live near a vacant or not, is impacted by the blight.
Even if there is not a high rate of vacancy in the neighborhood that you live in, your tax dollars are going to addressing this problem.
There have been several attempts at fixing the crumbling structures, including Council President Nick Mosby's revival of the Dollar Home Program.
Industry practices.
But the city's housing department says that's too expensive.
The city does not presently have the financial capacity to implement the program.
Even with Mosby not having a clear price tag. His plan, the center of controversy in April, when Mosby brought in Bruce Marks, leader of a national group called NACA. Marks spearheading this.
I just did.
Minister Marks, we will keep...
You're not from here, sir. You're not from here. You don't even know.
Mr.
You
Marks,
don't even
please.
know.
And sparking tense back and forth between council members.
That's an outrageous claim. That's an
Councilman Cohen, we've gone over that. I think I did a good job of controlling the chamber to go back and forth.
I feel on behalf of my colleague and my mayor that I'm going to need to express my concern about it.
Mr. President, I did that. Now, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Marks taking aim at Councilwoman Odette Ramos. Mosby's bill stalling in City Hall. Fast forward to this week, NACA announcing a convention coming to Charm City. Ramos warning Baltimoreans not to use the housing counseling company.
Why would also anybody want to do business with an organization that tried to incite a riot in City Hall? Why? Whenever I see something that's going to hurt Baltimore, I always call it out. That's what I've always done.
Marks firing back.
So she hasn't done her homework. She's making accusations which are unfounded because she takes it personally. She's so thin-skinned.
But the saga not over. NACA sending Ramos this cease and desist letter, telling her to stop talking poorly about the group. And a new statement, Ramos says she stands by her buyer beware notice, adding, quote, I will not be silenced. While the city leaders debate housing groups, Baltimore's blight brings the issue home for people living in or near these dilapidated structures. The Hopkins report only noting the price tag for certain things.
Really, we think that the impact is much broader than the $200 million figure. There's a lot of research showing the relationship between vacant properties, vacant lots, and increased crime rate.
And Baltimoreans already paying the ultimate price for a city facing a crime crisis. Earlier this year, Mayor Brandon Scott announced the city would be dedicating $100 million of federal COVID relief to looking at these vacant structures and dealing with the situation. The housing department says it could cost anywhere between $40,000 and $80,000 to stabilize just one vacant property. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
A lot of activity tonight as we take a live look at Ocean City. That's the boardwalk you're seeing right now. Some people likely enjoying what we call the last official weekend of summer. It's the Labor Day weekend before all schools pretty much go back next week.
You know, the smell, the popcorn.
The Thrasher's fries.
I wish I was
yummy.
there.
What's your pick, Jasmine?
Oh, you know, they've got really good Polish water ice and fried Oreos, so, you know, got to go with the sweet stuff. But a perfect weekend to head to Ocean City. Of course, we've got those nice and hot temperatures today and tomorrow. Now, things get a little bit shaky as we head into the weekend. That's when we have our next chance for storms later on in the weekend. Today, high temperatures range from the 70s through the 90s. Westminster was the hot spot at 90 degrees. Here in Baltimore, we hit a high of 87, and that's above average for this time of year, but expect even hotter temperatures as we continue the weekend. 77 for the current temperature with a few clouds over Towson. Winds are out of east-southeast around 7 miles per hour. And across the rest of the state, most of us are seeing those temperatures in the comfortable 70s. But overnight, expect our lows to fall to the upper 60s. That's going to keep us above average. And then we keep that warm trend as we head into the day tomorrow. I'll let you know how hot it gets for the rest of Labor Day weekend and when to expect the next chance for storms coming up in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Well, the O's and the A's squaring off tonight in Baltimore. Let's take a live look at Camden Yards as the O's just finish off their third straight win, a milestone win for number 70 for the Orioles this year. Timely hits and elite pitching help push the O's up in the wild card standings.
And speaking of timely pitching, check this out. Our Morgan Adsit throwing out the first pitch tonight at the Aberdeen Ironbirds game. She's rocking the 45 jersey, but how's her form? Pretty good, I think. Remember, she's pregnant.
She's expecting, and she still
so soon.
Knocked it out of the park.
And just killing it. I'm so
killing
proud of her.
Maxine.
Rocco will have the analysis ahead on the late edition.
Well, a promising August jobs report for President Biden as America sees progress on unemployment rates. Why another threat may be looming as fall approaches.
And dozens of Maryland college students currently have no way to access their tuition payments. Why explanations from the agency keep changing.
President Biden is celebrating the new jobs report just out for the month of August. 315,000 jobs were added for the month, and the president says nearly 10 million jobs have been added since he took office. The president says unemployment is at a near 50-year low, but inflation is still a big concern.
The bottom line is jobs are up, wages are up, people are back to work, and we're seeing some signs that inflation may be, I'm not overpromising, may be beginning to ease.
Inflation taming, as it's being called, can mainly be attributed to lower gas prices. Consumers are still paying much more for groceries, however, and other necessities. Today's job report comes as Wall Street turns in a third straight losing week. The Nasdaq fell nearly 5% this week alone, and interest rate hikes may continue into next year. Gas prices are also about to get more complicated. Russia's state-owned oil company shut off one of its main pipelines. The company says the pipeline needs maintenance, but G7 leaders are skeptical, pledging to put a cap on Russian oil costs. Well, we're barely a week into the school year, and issues are already kind of piling up. How school leaders are trying to adjust their issues. And a leap back in time to discover Baltimore's original story, how some brave souls are taking a page out of history in tonight's Maryland's Moment.
And we're starting to see temperatures fall across much of the state, with numbers mainly in the low 70s through the upper 70s. But get ready for another hot day tomorrow. I'll let you know just how hot it gets for the rest of Labor Day weekend coming up in my full forecast.
Well, if you're just joining us, we are following a deadly shooting on the campus of Mervo High School earlier this afternoon.
A Mervo student was killed in the school parking lot just as school let out for the day and the first week of class was starting to end. Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says a student from another Baltimore City school, not Mervo, approached the victim and pulled the trigger after they had a short argument.
Now, the gunman fired several shots, according to police, before trying to escape. Police were able to track him down and arrest him within seconds. Harrison says a large group of students were in the parking lot at the time.
This is conflict resolution, or the failure to solve conflict in a peaceful, sensible way, but rather someone using a gun that they are not allowed to have in the first place to solve their conflict and to take out their anger on someone else. And now the community is at a loss.
Mayor Scott, an alum himself of Mervo, says he is at a loss for words following today's event. The mayor and city school CEO, Dr. Sonia Santelises, met with students after the shooting. The school will provide grief counselors next week.
Today's shooting marks 243 homicides on the year. This summer has been particularly violent. The city saw 39 homicides in June, the highest number in a generation. In July, 35 lives were lost to violence, the third deadliest July since 2013. In August, Baltimore City saw 26 homicides.
It's been somewhat of a rocky start to the new school year for thousands of Maryland students as the state continues to combat a massive teacher shortage.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson looks back at a challenging week.
It's pretty common for districts to work out those kinks in the first days and weeks of the school year, and this year proving to be no different. From the city to the county,
just absorbing in the moment.
The 2022-2023 school year is underway.
Very excited for the school year.
And while the first week of school always brings excitement,
I'm looking forward to spending my last year in track, which is kind of sad though.
This year, it also brought a few bumps along the way. In Baltimore City, more than a dozen schools sent home early every day this week.
Last year, they got out a lot because of the heat. And same thing here this year, I guess.
Due to high temperatures and a lack of air conditioning in buildings.
So warm. It feels like 1,000 degrees. I want it to be winter.
Baltimore City Schools says it's on track with its master plan to have every school equipped with cooling systems. The district reporting just 14 schools left to upgrade, down from 76 schools without AC 4 years ago.
We're on target. We're in communication with the families early. And our team's been working round the clock.
Meanwhile, in Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County, the teacher shortage is coupled with a bus driver shortage.
We were anticipating hiring 90 bus drivers. We've hired over 40 thus far, and we have 32 in the pipeline. We've hired 14 bus attendants. So we're feeling good about those numbers.
It's a safety situation.
This video shared by a student attending Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Kids packed in, some standing in the aisle.
Even just now gave me the chills. I mean, my blood pressure really just dropped.
The district responding to say it's working to make adjustments to routes with overcrowded or undercrowded buses. Also receiving reports of ineligible students getting on buses.
It was just always said, like, this isn't possible.
A group of Anne Arundel parents also filed an appeal with the State Board of Ed, threatening legal action to delay the implementation of the district's new school start times.
You absolutely are going to have less drivers available. Start times might be healthier, but the implications and the consequences to the start times are not healthier.
And some districts, like Howard County, already talking about the 2023-24 school year. Howard County School Superintendent releasing proposed redistricting maps this week, which call for changes for more than 2,500 high schoolers, as the county plans to open a brand new high school in Jessup this time next year.
From there, we will provide additional detail.
At a board meeting Thursday, the superintendent indicating these discussions over district lines may be just beginning.
I've made a recommendation. It is the board's prerogative then to make adjustments to that.
The first week is now complete for many, yet some are still prepping for day one. Both Harford and Carroll County Public Schools will start their new years after this long holiday weekend on Tuesday, September 6th. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
The students in Washington, D.C. are seeing their fair share of issues with the bus system as well. In fact, one teen says he's only been to class twice this week because the bus hasn't picked him up. His mother says despite registering her son for pickup on his first day, the school system didn't provide the bus. The system is telling her that it could take up to 10 business days to fix the issue. For now, the mother is being forced to pay for an Uber to send her son to school, and those costs are racking up.
The $80 a day times 10 days whenever they get the transportation, that's $800. That's almost my rent money. With no reimbursement, it's not fair.
Well, Joanne McCrae is frustrated, saying her son is autistic and is a special ed student, and he belongs on buses with his classmates. Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems that your kids might run into, from teacher shortages to a lack of bus drivers. If you have a problem, you can call our news tip line. See that number on your screen? Give us a call. You can also send us an email or chime in with your concerns.
On the heels of the FDA approval of a new booster to fight Omicron, Marylanders 12 and over are now eligible to sign up for their shot. Governor Larry Hogan says Maryland will begin to administer the doses immediately. The state has already ordered 157,000 doses of the booster. Dr. Anthony Fauci explains why this new dose is so critical.
You want to match what you're giving the person to what the circulating strain of the virus will be. I do believe there will be benefit essentially for everyone, but clearly more benefit for the elderly and those who have underlying conditions.
The updated boosters have instructions that tell our cells to make antibodies against two strains of the virus, the original strain and Omicron. Again, anyone 12 and older is encouraged to get the shot. If you're eligible, you can search for available vaccine appointments at covidvax.maryland.gov.
The Baltimore City Fire Department is mourning the loss of one of its own. Last Wednesday, Captain Anthony Workman was critically hurt in a motorcycle accident. Now the Baltimore City Fire Department has announced he died from his injuries. He had served the city as a firefighter for 16 years.
His goal has always been to try to help people. He's just an extraordinary human being. I told his father that he meets the definition of what my mother always hoped I would be, which is a gentle man. And without a doubt, that's who he is.
Workman leaves behind a wife and two children. FOX45 would like to extend our condolences to his family and to his firefighter colleagues. Well, dozens of parents are voicing frustration tonight regarding the state agency in charge of their children's college funds. Maryland 529 says the calculation error has temporarily cut off access to certain accounts. The agency originally said that issue would be resolved later this month, but then they backtracked, saying they can only guarantee an update by the end of October. Some parents can't afford to wait any longer.
They keep moving the goalpost time and time again. This is a real betrayal of trust, and you need to come up with a mechanism to free up these funds so that parents can move forward with certainty, pay their tuition bills today, and move on.
Average annual tuition in Maryland was over $16,000 for the 2020-2021 school year and more than $1,300 higher than the national average. Tuition is up $133 from the year before, and Maryland ranks 18th in the country. The University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland's largest college, cost about $8,800 in tuition. That does not include room and board.
Have you ever wondered what it was like, what life was like a century ago, what people used to do and how they lived?
Fox 45's Megan Gillen and photojournalist Chris Masil dig into the past to uncover Baltimore's original story in a very unusual place.
1, 2, 3.
293 years of history.
All right, we're in business.
And when you go digging up the past...
That's a bird skull. Oh, no, it's a rat skull. It's a little rat.
You might find some skeletons in the closet.
Coming up.
I mean, toilet.
This is like our 2-year anniversary, actually, honestly. Ribby digging. So we've started with not knowing what the hell we were doing, coming down. And they're built well, they're sturdy. Like, it's crazy to think about. You never would have known these were here.
Evan Woodard.
I'm gonna take some photos myself now.
An historian and relic hunter digs up old outhouses.
All these homes that were once here, they're all now gone.
At least on the surface.
But in reality, like right below their feet, there's like these, huge holes that were once like someone's outhouse. This is where people lived at. This is where people, had their families. We can look at like old Sanborn maps and start mapping out everything, and we can measure it out to like an inch, and it'd be exactly where it needs to be at.
Today, his team is taking a deep dive down the hole.
No smell, thankfully. When they're this dry, they don't stink at all.
Plunging 15 to 30 feet underground in the Greater Baltimore Urban League parking lot.
It's an old neighborhood. It's a historically old neighborhood. I want to take you to a neighborhood that you've probably never been to.
A crowd of intrigued spectators gathers.
Most people have that curiosity. Like, what's under the ground? Who knows?
This is all by definition junk. Like, this isn't stuff that people wanted to save. And I don't know why that's so interesting now.
We're at the bottom. It's like natural hard ground like you're standing on up there.
Piece by piece, history is unearthed.
Oh, hell yeah.
Not all finds are treasures.
Are those teeth back there?
Can I see? A dentist would sure like to clean those.
And some are downright creepy.
Look at the babies' faces, though. These are a little creepy, huh?
Oh, by little, you mean a lot. Oh my God.
You're going to see that in your dreams?
But each brings a story to the table.
That is a large casing. That's like 1880s, 1890s.
It's Baltimore's story.
Corn, Mick, and
Flavor, you could add the cakes and stuff.
Bromo seltzer.
They're like in history. I like it. That's the whole point.
From bottles and bones to fine china.
We can find all the pieces for it. I mean, something that small, it's pretty unique. It has a pattern on it that we can figure out.
Found the other half of the
But it's so cool because you can just see how people lived and what they used.
Now people can actually see something come out of the ground and understand like what's happening, and they have an idea of what it's like.
Oh. Lessons that will live on.
We're actually documenting, going through the whole steps and logging everything. They can envision it when they're driving through now, seeing everything.
Imagining what life was like.
All right, cool, thanks.
Right here, so many years ago, in Baltimore.
Yeah, we're done.
I'm Megan Gilland, Fox 45 News.
After a nice and comfortable day today, it's going to get more humid over the weekend, and you'll notice that rise in humidity. I'll let you know just how hot the temperatures get coming up in my full forecast.
When a sudden cardiac arrest happens, AED machines can prevent tragedy, especially at schools. But a Spotlight on America investigation revealed the devices aren't universally required. National investigative correspondent Josie Sturman found advocates are pushing to change that.
This was the last photo that we have of John.
It's an ordinary photograph, just a teenage boy passing time gazing at his phone. But Joanne Babbitt treasures it. It's the last look at the child she lost.
Do you think about what your hopes were for him, what kind of life you saw for him?
I always wonder about that. What would he look like today? What would he be doing?
What John Taylor Babbitt could have been is a question she'll never be able to answer. Because this 16-year-old athlete, a picture of health who hoped to play college baseball someday, was playing pickup basketball one Sunday morning when the unimaginable happened.
In a split second, your life changes forever. He was running down the court and he collapsed from a sudden cardiac arrest.
Sudden cardiac arrest is a life-threatening emergency that impacts hundreds of thousands of people of all ages each year. Their hearts just stop beating unexpectedly. They stop breathing and become unresponsive. Unlike a heart attack, there is no warning, and 9 out of 10 people don't survive, according to the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. But a simple device could save them.
Open the case, turn on the button, and listen to it.
Begin by removing all clothing from the patient's chest.
Automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, can double or even triple the odds of surviving sudden cardiac arrest. Yet we discovered these machines aren't available everywhere, including many high school games and events where experts agree they're essential, with sudden cardiac arrest the leading cause of death for young athletes. Spotlight on America combed through statutes compiled by the AED Law Center and found only 16 states and D.C. generally require these devices in schools. Just 7 of those states, plus West Virginia, specifically mention AEDs should be available near athletic fields or at sporting events. While in more than half the country, there's no formal requirement at all for schools. Some simply encourage AED availability.
You need to have those devices where the public can see them. There's no reason that we don't have them in all places of public assembly.
Experts tell us there are 3 main reasons they're not: cost, liability, and fear. With advancing technology, cost is becoming less of a problem. Good Samaritan laws we found in many states have handled the liability issue. But the fear of actually using an AED in a crisis remains a problem.
One cannot make a mistake and harm someone with an AED. The machine senses whether there is a heart rhythm or not.
Dr. Henry Jampel is a trained physician, but he says AEDs are so simple anyone can use them. His own sudden cardiac arrest 21 years ago made him an advocate for the device that was not available to help him.
You have the opportunity to save a life by yourself. Do it. Don't let it go by.
Joanne Babbitt feels the same way. There was no AED available to bring back the kind, active boy she loved. So she honors his legacy by pushing states and the federal government to one day get these devices in all public places.
I see progress. Is it enough? Absolutely not. But are we moving forward? Yes, we are. I do think we will get there.
I'm Josie Sturman for Spotlight on America.
Well, sudden cardiac arrest is the 3rd leading cause of death in the U.S. To see a state-by-state comparison of AED laws, read the extended online investigation at spotlightinvestigates.com. Well, time now to check on the weather one last time with Jasmine as we head into this beautiful holiday weekend. Might get a little iffy on Labor Day, but not too bad.
Yeah, you know, it's been a very, very nice start to the weekend. We had temperatures in the 80s, a little bit higher than average, but low humidity, so not much to complain about. But as Maxine mentioned, things will get a little bit iffy as we finish the weekend, and we'll have our next weather maker bring rain and storms. Currently, though, we're nice and dry, sitting at 77 with partly cloudy skies over Baltimore. Winds are out of the east-southeast around 7 miles per hour. And across the state, we're mainly seeing those temperatures in the low 70s through the upper 70s. Annapolis, one of those warmer spots, currently around 78 degrees. Now, overnight, expect temperatures falling to the upper 60s and even the low 70s in some areas. That's above average for this time of year, and that hot trend will continue throughout much of the weekend. We're talking highs approaching the 90s on Saturday and Sunday. Then heading into Labor Day, temperatures will actually be lower, but we're talking the chance for showers and storms. As we continue into the middle of the week, we'll have more rain and storms as we deal with an unsettled pattern. Now, overnight, more clouds move in, and we'll wake up to mostly cloudy skies in the morning. Then by the afternoon, expect more of a mix of sunshine and clouds. We'll stay dry overnight and into Sunday, waking up to plenty of sunshine. More clouds will move in throughout the day, and there could even be a few stray showers. But it's Monday when our next weather maker leads to showers and storms across parts of the state. These will mainly occur during the second half of the day, so if you have any plans to be outside on Labor Day Monday, you might want to get those plans in the morning. And of course, keep watch on the radar. Meanwhile, we're still keeping watch on Danielle. That is our fourth named storm of the hurricane season. It is expected to remain over the open Atlantic. It won't be a threat to land. Now, actually new in, we actually have Earl. This is our fifth named storm, and that just happened less than an hour ago. So that system is expected to continue to move toward the west before taking a turn into the open Atlantic. Right now, most of the models do keep it away from land, but it's an area that we'll have to continue to monitor. We've seen in the past couple of days that things are quickly starting to heat up in the Atlantic. We're getting closer and closer to that September 10th peak of hurricane season. Make sure that you are staying alert. 68 for the low temperature tonight with more clouds moving in. Then tomorrow looks like a great day to spend outside. 88 for the high. It will be hot and a little bit sticky at times, so make sure that you are staying hydrated. Then as we continue into Sunday, it gets even hotter. 89 with those heat indices likely in the 90s. There could be a stray shower during the afternoon, but our rain chances increase on Labor Day. 84 for the temperature with a chance for storms. 82 on Tuesday with more storms. 83 as we head into Wednesday and another round of storms. But after that, we dry out heading into the weekend and temperatures return to the upper 80s. Back to you.
Tomorrow is National Cinema Day, and it just might be the perfect day to catch a movie. We'll tell you why. And there's no place like home. After back-to-back series on the road, the O's are back at Camden Yards. A battle of the lowest payrolls in baseball ahead on Sports Unlimited.
After back-to-back-to-back winning months of baseball, the O's hope to make this a September to remember, and locking up a wild card would certainly help. Gunnar Henderson's making his Camden Yards debut. In the eighth, he was batting eighth and playing second, and in his first home at bat, he gives the crowd something to cheer about. How about a double down the right field line? He scored later in the inning. Jorge Mateo would come through big in the bottom of the eighth. That's what I was getting to. With a double of his own, O's add to the lead, and they go on to win their third straight, 5-2 the final score. Josh Ross knew that he had the tools to play in the NFL. It just took one team to believe in him. 3 days and 7 rounds went by, and the linebacker from Michigan, he never got a call. But following the draft, the Ravens reached out, signing him to a rookie free agent deal. Ross was never a shoo-in to make this team, but that drove him to work. And it was a grind, but after impressive showings in all 3 preseason games, he made the Ravens' 53-man roster. Of course, he would have loved to have been drafted, but it ended up working out for the best.
You see the guys that's drafted before you, and it's just like, but at the end of the day, honestly, I knew even not getting drafted, like I was still going to have one of my best opportunities and be able to come here, you know, and the opportunity was there. And I took that opportunity. I came here and stood on my 10 toes and worked my butt off, man. And that's what I'm going to continue to do every day.
Coming up tonight, season openers for a reigning state champ and a state runner-up, how both teams fared in Game 1. We'll have a Serena Williams update when Sports Unlimited returns.
New tonight on the late edition, the IRS says it accidentally posted information of thousands of taxpayers online. Who is impacted? And we have team coverage after a high school student is shot and killed in Baltimore. Another teen arrested for that shooting. It's the second weekend of the Maryland State Fair, and our meteorologist Justin Chambers and morning anchor Tom Rogers, they had some fun at the fair this morning. They teamed up to compete in the milkshake contest against other Baltimore media outlets. Justin is looking to defend his title from last year.
All right, the winner is 100 points.
Steve Huber and Matt Weitzel of 100.7 The Bay took home the big prize. Their Sticks Twix milkshake included, get this, Jimmy's As a tribute to our beloved traffic jam Jimmy, Tustin and Tom say they're going to adjust their recipe a little bit and take home the trophy next year. I'm sure they will. If you're headed to Timonium, we want to see you enjoying the fair with your family and friends this weekend. Send us your favorite photos and videos through the Chime In tab at foxbaltimore.com or download the WBFF app.
A Mervo High School student is shot and killed today. Tonight, police have another student in custody. And another death hits the Baltimore City Fire Department, how they're mourning a firefighter who died on his way to work. And new tonight, thousands of taxpayers' information accidentally posted online by the IRS. Who is affected?
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
This is school police. They're on the parking lot and they need a medic for a victim.
4005, we are in the back parking lot of Mervo. We are on Tivoli in the back parking lot. He is shot in the head.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson, and we begin sadly with the death of a Baltimore teenager. A high school student is shot and killed this afternoon at Mervo High in northeast Baltimore. And Baltimore police say it happened as school was dismissed. The student was shot and taken to the hospital where he died. Police arrested the suspect after a brief chase. They recovered a weapon and say the suspect is also a student at another Baltimore school. Keith Daniels is reporting on violence in city schools. First, Riel Creighton has more on violence at Mervo.
A murder here at Mervo High School during dismissal, how the first week of school ended here. It was an incredible tragedy, enough to bring out the mayor, the police commissioner, and the city schools CEO to all talk about the stunning nature of this and the trauma that it has no doubt unleashed. All of this happening in broad daylight. About 2:30 this afternoon, police say a student from another high school showed up here, confronted the victim outside in the parking lot. There was a brief exchange before he pulled out a gun and shot him. Police say the suspect then ran. City schools police, already on the grounds, chased that teen and caught up with him within minutes and recovered the gun. Police say he is now in custody. Meantime, several sources, witnesses telling us that this all unfolded in front of students. You can imagine just how many there were here as school was being let out. A 15-year-old telling us that he saw the victim up close as he was laying on the ground and that he had been shot in the head. There was also a lot of panic at the school and even in the neighborhood. One woman who lives doors down, who did not want to show her face, but described the moments after the shooting, saying that she could actually smell the gunfire.
It smelled like firecracks, fireworks. But I'm like, what is that smell? Someone shooting. And I just saw the kids like dispersed all over the place. They were just running from here and there, left and right. So I'm just looking like, and I didn't see anyone. Just kids running, that's it. And they were just hollering.
Now, a 15-year-old student who we spoke to off camera telling us that you cannot get a weapon into this high school, that security is already very high, which is likely why they believe this happened outside in the parking lot. Meantime, police have not identified the victim or the suspect, but a source close to this investigation has identified both of them to us. We've learned that the victim is a 17-year-old 10th grader here at Mervo High School. Meantime, that suspect, also a 17-year-old from another high school again. We are not identifying him, pending charges because he's a minor. Reporting in Baltimore, Riel Creighton, Fox 45 News.
This is the third incident of violence near a school this week. Wednesday night, a 19-year-old security guard was shot and killed at an off-campus apartment near Morgan State University. That shooting happened less than a mile away from the campus. Police identified him as Julian Frew. Now, police have not released any information about a suspect or a motive for the killing. On Monday, a shooting in South Baltimore put a school on lockdown. Police say a man shot his brother inside an animal clinic after an argument. Students and teachers at Thomas Johnson Elementary Middle School were locked down during the police response. After a 3-hour standoff, the suspect surrendered. The brother, who was a vet, survived that shooting. Well, more than a dozen guns are seized across city schools last year. It was a record. In a recent city council meeting about school safety, there was no talk about weapons inside schools. Tonight, Keith Daniels presses elected leaders on ensuring safety in schools.
Well, we're told it was city school police officers who chased down that suspect at that shooting at Mervo High School, and now a closer look at school officers and the big change they say they need to help keep schools safe.
This is school police. They're on the parking lot and they need a medic for a victim.
He is shot in the head. Put out a citywide broadcast where we have students everywhere.
Gun violence and Baltimore City schools. A deadly combination at Mervo High School Friday. A student killed, the suspect, another student from another high school. City Councilman Robert Stokes.
It's unfortunate this happened the 5th day of school when school just opened up.
Certainly unfortunate, but maybe no surprise. The warning bells sounding early on about guns and school violence. Councilman Stokes, chair of the City Council's Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee, called a hearing just last week to discuss current school safety measures and what steps are being taken to keep students and staff safe. But after more than a 2-hour hearing that Thursday night, there were no questions about guns and city schools. The issue virtually ignored.
We didn't hear much about guns. Well, that will be probably at the next hearing. We're going to talk about guns in school. I'm going to bring it up.
Stokes instead focused on the agencies and their reports that night. But 1 week later, deadly gun violence at a city school. After that shooting, we pressed Stokes once again on the issue, including the effort to permit school resource officers to be armed while inside school buildings. Are you going to be pressuring the school board, the school officials, to do more about that issue?
No, that has to come from Annapolis.
Right, but will you be pressuring the local school board to pressure those people in Annapolis?
I will call each individual on the school board and have a conversation with them about that. Absolutely.
But at the shooting at Mervo Friday, Sergeant Clyde Boatwright, the City Schools Police Union president, says armed officers did respond, able to take swift action to apprehend the suspect and recover the gun, because the incident happened at dismissal, when officers can wear their weapons.
But what happened if that would have happened inside the school?
Right.
The school police would have been unarmed.
Well, for now, Baltimore City is the only jurisdiction in Maryland that does not allow school police officers to be armed while inside school buildings. Reporting now, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Mayor Brandon Scott attended Mervo High. He spoke after this afternoon's shooting.
We don't have to be that way. We can be better. We don't have to wait for someone else to do something. We don't have to point the finger and say who else is going to do something. We don't have to wait or post something on social media about how bad things are. Get up, get out there, get involved, get off your ass, and get involved with these young people.
Fox 45 spoke with the former city and federal prosecutor about the mayor's comments and the violence still playing out on the streets of Baltimore.
I think the mayor is full of good intentions, and all of our thoughts and prayers are with the victim, the family, his classmates. But people are just sick and tired of just words, of these pledges and promises and calls to action, using curse words to show your frustration. That doesn't make things better. And I think people are looking for an actual change in policy, for an actual change in results. And I just don't know that any of these murders shocks the conscience of our city leaders anymore.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Mayor Brandon Scott is sending the right message to criminals in the city? So far, 96% of you who voted say no. You can weigh in by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote. A Baltimore firefighter dies in a crash on the way to work. How he's being remembered. The IRS says it accidentally posted information of thousands of taxpayers online. Who is impacted?
And it's a nice and quiet night with temperatures in the mid-70s. We'll see those numbers fall, but then we're back to the hot temperatures tomorrow. I'll let you know how hot it gets coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, the Baltimore City Fire Department is mourning the loss of one of its firefighters. Last Wednesday, Captain Anthony Workman was critically hurt in a motorcycle accident. The fire department says he died from his injuries. He was a firefighter for 16 years.
His goal has always been to try to help people. He's just an extraordinary human being. I told his father that he meets the definition of what my mother always hoped I would be, which is a gentle man. And without a doubt, that's who he is.
Workman leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Number two, the IRS is acknowledging an error that exposed taxpayer information on the web. As many as 120,000 individuals are impacted. Now, these are people who filed a 990T form. That form is used to report unrelated business income. The agency says they have removed the files from public view on its website and will be contacting those directly affected. Number three, new COVID booster shots will be available next week in Maryland. The CDC is announcing the sign-off of the new boosters. They've been tailored for the Omicron variants. Now, these shots are available for anyone older than 12. If you've received a COVID shot in the past 2 months, you're asked to wait. Head to foxbaltimore.com for a link to make an appointment. New video shows an assassination attempt in Argentina. How close the country's vice president came with a gunman.
Will President Biden's speech help Democrats hold on in Washington or drive an even deeper political wedge across the country? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with both sides.
An apparent assassination attempt is caught on camera in Argentina. It happened last year as the country's vice president was leaving her home in Buenos Aires. A man in the crowd can be seen pointing a gun inches away from the vice president's face. Authorities say the loaded gun failed to go off. The man was taken into custody. There's political and social unrest in Argentina right now. The vice president is in the midst of a corruption trial. Records from the Justice Department unsealed today offer more in-depth information about the volume of documents recovered from Donald Trump's personal office at Mar-a-Lago. Among the items recovered, spread across 33 boxes, more than 10,000 government documents without classification markings, some mixed in with photographs, magazines, gifts, books, and clothing. Lawyers for the former president have asked a federal judge or third party to independently review the items seized. Federal prosecutors say they've already finished reviewing the documents. They're still awaiting a decision on that request. Well, it's being called a wake-up call, a critical warning of real threats to American democracy. But will President Biden's big speech deepen the divide between Democrats and Republicans? Sinclair's chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman, explains.
A defining line drawn. President Biden painting a very dark picture Thursday of why America should be worried about voters who support Donald Trump.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love.
While many who still rally around the former president may support some of those references, it's not all, says conservative author Richard Vatz, and that labeling so many people as extreme is irresponsible.
Even those of us who are not supporters of Donald Trump personally, and I am not, would find this really an objectionable speech, which seems to accuse those of us who don't agree with him as being radical, as being dangerous, and being people who are really not part of democracy.
Polling this summer shows 52% of registered Republicans consider themselves part of the MAGA movement. The rest say no or weren't sure what it is.
When you think of great speakers in the past, John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, you can't even imagine they're giving a speech like this. Who would recommend a speech such as this, which does not have the potential of winning him new adherents and only has the potential of solidifying those who already think he's the greatest?
But going into midterms, Biden may believe that's enough, that a constant drumbeat of mentioning the January 6th attack, conservative court rulings, and Donald Trump will keep Democrats in power.
Politics can be fierce and mean and nasty in America. I get it. I believe in the give and take of politics, in disagreement and debate and dissent.
A divide some Republicans say Biden, who once promised unity, has now added to. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
All right, here's what's happening this weekend. Top left, barring bad weather, NASA will blast off its most powerful rocket. Artemis won't have any humans on board yet on its mission to the moon. If all goes well, astronauts could be ready to strap in by 2024. Top right, tomorrow is National Cinema Day. Movie tickets will be just $3. That's right, not bad at all, at a majority of theaters across the United States. And bottom left, it's the second weekend of the Maryland State Fair. The fair runs for 3 weekends, wrapping up September 11th. And on the bottom right, athletes from across the world are in Baltimore for the Maryland Cycling Classic. That race is set for Sunday, and drivers should plan for parking restrictions downtown. Come to our website, and we'll have more information for you on that. Meantime, it is Labor Day weekend. Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax is here right now with how the weather is shaping up on, sadly for me, Jasmine, and I think you too to some degree, the final weekend of summer, right?
No, I'm excited.
Jasmine says, no, that's just you. I love it, Jasmine.
I know you like those hot temperatures, but not me. I am so looking forward to cooler temperatures. Those are actually coming on Labor Day Monday, but unfortunately, there will also be some storms. So for those like Kai who love the warm temperatures and the summer-like weather, you've got Saturday and Sunday to enjoy. Currently, we sit at 74 with partly cloudy skies and winds out of the east around 7 miles per hour. Temperatures across the rest of the state are mainly in the low to mid 70s, and those numbers will fall a little bit more. We're talking low temperatures in the upper 60s and the low 70s. That means above average numbers. Then tomorrow, 74 around 8 a.m. We quickly reach the upper 80s as we head into the afternoon with a mix of sunshine and clouds. We stay dry and it will be a little sticky, but those hot temperatures continue into Sunday. By Labor Day, we're looking at our next chance for showers and storms along with lower temperatures. Through the middle of the week, we'll keep the low temperatures, but we're also talking storms on Monday, Tuesday, and on Wednesday. Overnight, though, we stay dry and quiet with more clouds moving in. Expect a mix of sunshine and clouds tomorrow as highs reach the upper 80s and even the low 90s in some areas. Then we start off Sunday morning with dry weather and sunshine. We'll have more clouds by the afternoon and possibly a few stray showers. Most of us will stay dry. We'll have our rain come on Monday ahead of the next weather maker. There could be showers and storms, but most of this will occur during the afternoon. So if you have any plans during the morning, it looks like you are good to go, but still keep watch on the radar. Meanwhile, we're keeping watch on Hurricane Danielle, still a Category 1 hurricane. It could strengthen into a Category 2 hurricane, but it's expected to remain over the open Atlantic and not be a threat to land. Now, we also have Earl, which formed less than an hour ago. This is a tropical storm, and it's expected to strengthen as it moves toward the west before making a curve back to the open Atlantic. At this time, it's not a threat to the United States, and many of the models agree with that as well, most of them having it making a curve back into the middle of the Atlantic. 68 overnight, then tomorrow high temperatures reach 88 degrees. That's above average. It will be hot and a little sticky at times. It gets even hotter on Sunday with highs around 89. There's that chance for a stray storm, but we've got a better chance for rain on Labor Day, Tuesday, and Wednesday. After that, we dry out and heat up as we head into the weekend. Back to you.
And there were no white-only signs or no colored allowed signs. The only sign I remember was welcome.
A haven in Anne Arundel County for African Americans during segregation. After the break, the new efforts to preserve Carr's Beach. But during the 1950s and 60s, Anne Arundel County was still segregated in Maryland, and the beach for African Americans was Carr's Beach. It was a popular Chesapeake Bay resort and concert venue. Brad Bell with our Sinclair sister station in D.C. looks at the beach's rich history and the efforts to preserve part of it.
It's just a small, quiet patch of beach now. But from the 1930s through the 1950s, this stretch of Chesapeake waterfront echoed with the music of the greats of the era.
James Brown, Muddy Waters, T-Bone Pickett, the Supremes, the Delphonics, but also gospel. You could tell the story of the American music right here off of the sands of this great noble Chesapeake Bay.
But historian Vincent O'Leggett says the beach is part of a far more important history. Through the Jim Crow era, Carr's Beach was one of only 7 beaches ever listed in the Green Book, the guide for African American travelers. In its heyday, the black-owned beach resort encompassed 180 bayfront acres. Leggett and his friend Faye Belt remember coming here as children.
I know we gathered as family, and we gathered to come down to this beautiful sanctuary.
And there were no white-only signs or no colored allowed signs. The only sign I remember was welcome.
They had a little carnival, the electric swing, the Ferris wheels, all the little things that spin around, and all that history.
So what I would think, it was just a respite where just for a moment you felt like you were somebody. Nobody could tell you to stand up. No one could tell you to sit down. And so I think that that's really the spirit of this place.
A spirit Leggett hopes is being reborn, a history retold. This summer, this last 5-acre patch of what was Carr's Beach was purchased by the city of Annapolis for preservation. This week, it was announced that thanks to the newly enacted Maryland Great Outdoors Act, it will become a partner state park, meaning funds will be available to build trails and exhibits to tell the story of the people of Carr's Beach.
I think that the story of business, a story of resiliency, is really the story that we want to uplift, that even in spite of all of the barriers, particularly with state-sponsored segregation, we still rise.
In Annapolis, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
After years of losing baseball, Birdland is starting to believe again. How the O's battled late to take the first of 3 over the A's. Hey, the Orioles have their eyes set on playoffs right now, believe it or not, and nothing is going to stop them. You're looking live at Camden Yards as the O's and the A's squared off tonight. Rocco DeSangro is here right now with Sports Unlimited. Rocco, seems the birds are not only flying high, they're defying the odds.
I don't really know if it's defying the odds anymore because this team believes, so does its fan base. It's really nice to see. And I just got to say one thing, chaos coming. By September of 2021, the O's were already eliminated from the playoffs. Fast forward 365 days, and this is a team fighting for a postseason berth. and they have as good a shot as anyone else. O's enter the night 1.5 back of that third wild card spot. Gunnar Henderson's making his Camden Yards debut, batting 8th, playing 2nd, and in his first home at bat, he gives the crowd something to cheer about. How about a double down the right field line? And he does the thing, the goggle thing they all do. Robinson Chirinos would bring him in with a double of his own. O's take a 1-0 lead. Let's go to the 5th now. The Birds were up 2-0, and that's when Dean Kramer ran into some trouble. Tony Kemp drives in 2 with a single to center, and that ties the game. But in the 8th, after taking the lead on a bases-loaded walk by Adley Rutschman, Jorge Mateo opens this one up. 2-run score in the O's in their 3rd straight, 5-2 the final score. So Tyler Wells got the rehab start tonight in Aberdeen, but he wasn't the first one to take the mound. That's our very own Morgan Adsit throwing out the first pitch. A strike, of course. Wouldn't expect anything less. Come on, Ferris. You got to hold on to that ball, though. To Tyler Wells, he retired the first 6 batters he faced. Wells went 2 1/3, 1 earned, 1 hit, and 3 Ks. He's rehabbing in Aberdeen. Grayson Rodriguez will throw very soon in Bowie. Josh Ross knew that he had the tools to play in the NFL. It just took one team to believe in him. 3 days and 7 rounds went by, and the linebacker from Michigan, he never got a call. But following the draft, the Ravens reached out, signing him to a rookie free agent deal. Ross was never a shoo-in to make the team, but that drove him to work. And it was a grind. But after impressive showings in all 3 preseason games, he made the Ravens' 53-man roster. Of course, he would have loved to have been drafted. Who wouldn't? But it ended up working out for the best.
You see the guys that's drafted before you, and it's just like, But at the end of the day, honestly, I knew even not getting drafted, like I was still going to have one of my best opportunities and be able to come here, and the opportunity was there. And I took that opportunity. I came here and stood on my 10 toes and worked my butt off, man. And that's what I'm going to continue to do every day.
High school football action continued tonight. Standing room only at Milford Mill as they played host to rival Franklin. Franklin would strike first with a big red zone touchdown. Xander McCracken throws a dart to his receiver in the corner of the end zone. Extra point would be good, and it's a 7-0 game. But then the Millers would really turn it on. Check this out. Deshaun Purdy, the Mount St. Joe transfer, lets it fly, and Dayson Shell gets behind everybody. Millers would score 42 unanswered. They go on to win this one 42-7, the final score. This one right here got underway at 3:45. Defending state champs from Dunbar opening their season against Digital Harbor. Second quarter, Dunbar leading 22-0. Digital Harbor on first down. Pass left to the slot where Dunbar swarms the receiver. Robert Smith Jr. forces the fumble, and it's recovered. First down, Dunbar inside Digital Harbor's own 30-yard line. And a few plays later on second down, Devin Roche with the keeper. He scrambles all over the Rams defense for the score. That makes it 28-0. And the Poets rolling their season opener 48-0, the final score. So as the tennis world watched, cheered, cried, and cheered some more, Serena Williams, the greatest to ever do it, was defeated by Ajla Tomljanovic in the 3rd round of the U.S. Open. An emotional night for Williams.